Hello, friends. Today we have with us a wonderful chartered accountant and financial analyst. He is Nishant Ruparel, and he runs his own independent practice as a chartered accountant. And he's a accountant to many independent consultants, including myself. I found that in my working on a day-to-day basis, I get a lot of support from him because it relieves me of a lot of my burden of having to remember taxation issues and deadlines and those kind of things. So he has helped me and many other consultants to relook at the way we manage our cash flows and manage our accounting and our submissions and our compliances. So that's why I brought him here to you to give you some ideas as to how this can be done. So, hi Nishant. Um,
Hi.
Nishant, we have an audience of participants from the All India Management Association Advanced Certificate Program in Business Consulting. Mostly,
Great.
they all want to be independent consultants. They all want to, at some stage
Okay.
or the other, one or two already are. A couple of them are faculty
Mm-hmm.
members wanting to consult, and some will definitely be setting up in the next 1 year, and some perhaps, 4 or 5 years time frame, as in when they retire.
Right.
So everybody wants their businesses to be successful and profitable and
True.
growth to the extent possible.
Right.
But I'm an HR consultant, someone's in IT, and someone's in project management, and someone is in different niche areas, someone's a coach. It's not in our first nature to manage financial aspects of business.
True.
And especially when I'm starting out, I'm more of a technical person in my domain and more of experience in that. And you have been a financial advisor to so many independent consultants, including myself. And what is the advice you would like to give our audience regarding smooth and effortless management of financial matters?
Great. I'll tell you that. So, as you rightly pointed out, the first thing that you said is everybody is good in their own domain. But the reason why people don't want to get into financial consulting or any consulting for that matter is because of the compliance burden. People are very scared about the compliance part of it, the taxation aspects, the retirement benefits. Now, most of the people have this feeling that okay, if you are a salaried person, then you have your retirement benefits, you have your perquisites, you have certain other benefits which you get from the company. But what a person fails to understand or realize that it's your own money that the company is giving you. It's nothing that is coming to you for free. It's the cost to the company. So what comes to you after the deductions is what you get in your hand, and you have no reason to plan it. Whereas if you are a consultant, you have a huge scope to plan your taxes. You have your plan your financial planning for your retirement. You can plan your own indirect taxes. Now, one major thing that people fail to understand is if you are into a salaried person, if you are a salaried person, you do not get the benefits of indirect taxes paid by you. So I'll just give you a small example for that. You pay your 33% taxes when you earn salaries. Now, after that 33% has been paid, the balance comes to you. And when you go and spend that money again, let's suppose you buy a mobile phone, you are paying additional 18% GST. Now, if you are a consultant, you can claim benefit of this in your business. You can actually get a credit for this, and what you pay is only the balance portion of that. Whereas if you are a salaried person, this is a cost to you. So in that scenario, your effective tax rate goes to 51%. Now, these are certain things that people don't realize because it's just that it's a notion that okay, I have to pay GST. But then there are people who explore this opportunity. So consultants, when they get into consulting, when they meet their own CAs, they get this advices that okay, you can claim GST benefits for your laptop purchases, your mobile purchases, many other purchases like this, your furniture, etc., etc. Similarly, if you're spending on your hotel bills, your travel bills, those comes to you as a deduction at the time of filing your taxes if you are a consultant. However, if you are a salaried personnel, this does not give you any benefit. It's again a cost to you which is incurred.
Yeah.
So these are certain things that people don't realize, that these are the benefits of being a consultant. Apart from this, when people say, okay, I've got retirement benefits in the form of gratuity, PF. Now, again, coming to that, gratuity is nothing but something that is getting deducted from your salary and will be paid out to you only when you quit the company. PF is given to you only at the time when you retire. Now, assuming if you are a consultant, you do not pay so much high taxes. Your effective tax rate as a consultant after claiming all the expenditure, everything is almost one third of what you pay in salaries. So that 20% saved is nothing but something that you can plan for your future. That 20%, if you are a good financial planner, and if you are somebody who believes in keeping money aside for the retirement, that 20% you can invest. And that 20% at the end of the day, when you retire from being as a consultant also, that money which comes to you will be much higher than what you get in salaries in terms of gratuity or retirement benefits. But as I said, people are mostly scared because they feel, okay, if I become a consultant, I have to file my GST, I have to file my indirect taxes, I have to file my direct taxes, I have to file my tax audit reports, I'll have to get in touch with my CA and do a lot of reporting, stuff like that. But then if you get a good consultant, he can help you plan your taxes properly, plan your finances properly, plan your money properly. In short, I mean, you can have your own investments in the company which can grow at a rate of 12-15%, whereas this money which you're earning from salary grows only at 4%, 5%.
Wonderful.
So these are things that people need to keep in mind. Apart from obviously the other benefits which are not financial, it creates value, it creates a brand for yourself. So those are things, again, I'm not the right person to talk on it, but then obviously that gives you more benefit because more people in the society would obviously know you if you're a consultant rather than just a small group of people when you are in a salaried personnel.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is something that is a different topic altogether, not related to finances, but obviously
We're dealing with personal branding as a sector.
yes, it's an intangible asset that is created. It does not have any money value attached to it, but yeah, that is a big component which people should consider in mind when they are into consulting. And apart from this, as I said, taxation is a huge aspect. Direct taxes, indirect taxes, investments. You can look at your own investments like your portfolio management, everything. If it's salary, then obviously only the money which is coming to you after tax deduction, after all your post savings and all that comes to you. So there is very little less planning involved when you are a salaried person. However, a professional and a consultant, there is a wide area of scope. So I believe one should go for consulting.
Wonderful. That's great, because not only do you take the burden of the, reminders of the taxation and the submissions and the compliances, but also you give advice on how do I manage my money better so that I, generate more profitability within my existing,
True.
earnings and within my existing capacity, like taking advantage of all the possible tax benefits and all the possible
Yes.
ways in which I can save from my side. That's great. One of the big fears that many independent and small businesses have is how do I stay on the right side of the tax and the finance authorities? There are times when I've received a notice for an income tax matter, or I've received a notice for a GST
Yes.
matter. When I read that notice, I get very scared and I don't know how to deal with it, and I feel completely helpless in being able to manage it. So, what is your advice, on dealing with the authorities and staying on the right side of the law rather than unknowingly, unwillingly, and not even being aware of it, you've defaulted on something?
True. No, I mean that is a problem with everybody. I mean, for a common personal, if he's not into finance or not dealing with the tax authorities, a small notice which comes to your email ID or your home generally panics you because you feel that okay, there is something wrong. But I mean, the best part is you have professionals around you who can just help you, and you can just send your notices to them. I mean, basically, see, to be on the right part of it, what you need to be sure about is you need to have discipline around your compliances. You cannot be delayed on your filing your taxes, you cannot be delayed on filing any of your compliances as per se. So I mean clients like you who are very particular, who've been sending me the sheets, excel sheets every month. So that is the kind of discipline that you need to have. I mean, if you have the discipline right and you have the right professional around you, I'm sure you will be able to make it. I mean, these are not rocket sciences, it's just normal compliance that everybody has to go through. Just that you've been into salary, if you are a salaried personnel, you've not been doing this all this while, then it becomes an additional burden, but it's only for a few period of time. I mean, once you get used to it, you are regular enough to do it. I mean, it should not be a problem. And the only thing is you should not do anything hanky-panky. I mean, what is within the provisions of the law, you should take the benefit of it, but you should not try to cross the law.
So, Nishant, what would you advise our consultants? Some of them operate outside the country, maybe Dubai and maybe
Mhm,
East, or maybe some of them even beyond that. Uh, you know,
mhm.
so we sometimes receive professional fees from outside the country for work that we might have done there or work that we might have done here for there. How is that dealt with as far as taxation is concerned?
So basically, when you receive money from abroad, there are three aspects to be looked into. One is the income tax aspect. Now, income tax is very clear, irrespective of whether you receive any funds in India or any funds from abroad, those are to be taxed in India. I mean, there is no distinction between a foreign money or an Indian money. However, from a GST perspective, it is important to know this because GST doesn't, there is no GST basically on the amount that is received from foreign. There is no GST leviable. It's export of service. However, when I say export of service, every situation, every service has to be scrutinized before you term this as the export of service. As you rightly said, some services could have been offered abroad, some services could have been offered in India for a foreign company.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then GST is leviable. However, if it's all abroad, then GST is not leviable. And the third most important aspect which people need to consider, and I'm sure not many know about this, is the foreign trade policy. India has a FTP policy. So that FTP policy, as per the latest FTP policy, even consultants who are offering services, export of services, are eligible to claim certain benefits from the government in
Okay.
the form of subsidies. And but the only thing is, again, the consultant needs to advise you, because as a domain expert, you are not supposed to be reading the FTP, you are not supposed to be reading the foreign trade policy, or you would not be aware about this. So there are certain FTP consultants who specifically deal into this area, and they study your matter. If you tell them, okay, this is the area of work that I offer, this is the kind of services that I offer to my clients, and the money comes from abroad, he will tell you whether you are eligible to claim any subsidies from the government, because those subsidies are ranging anywhere between 2% to 5% on the gross receipts.
Mhm.
So that could be a substantial earning as far as the consulting is concerned. Again, this money would be purely taxed in India because it's income for you. However, GST, as I said, would not be applicable on that portion.
Okay. So one last question, some of the consultants here are very ambitious and, they want to quit their salaried jobs and start up these small businesses. And within the consulting domain, maybe it's an IT or within it's some technology that you're bringing in. You might create a product that might go viral and that goes very big. And you might want to look at some angel funding at some stage in your life. So what is the role
Right.
of a chartered accountant and how does one arrange that kind of thing? I mean, in a way, I know it's a huge area, but what are some of the things that as a starting before I even, begin, I need to know about?
So first things first out here, before we go to the angel investors, of course, this is a big area where people are actually getting a lot of investments on the startup businesses. However, one needs to also look at the Startup India policy that the government has in place for all the startups that are registered in India. Now, if you see, there is one important criteria which is laid down in the startup, that it should be an innovative business and it should have a scalable business model.
Okay.
Now, the Startup India offers you a 3-year tax holiday.
Mhm.
Now, that is something which is very good for a startup business. That for the next 3 years, out of any 3 years,
That
out of the
apply
next
to
10
management
years,
consulting? Would that apply to management
uh,
consulting?
again, that is a case-to-case basis. There is no fixed criteria, but as I said, the criteria laid down in the Startup India policy, it says that it should be innovative and it should be a scalable business model. So, in
Okay.
my opinion, management consultant might not qualify for this tax rebate.
Some management consultants do have businesses that get scalable, particularly in the tech sector and, engineering.
Right. So if there is something, yeah, if anything related to technology can qualify for this. But as I said, again, this is a very new policy that the government has come up with, and I'm sure in India everybody wants to take the benefit as soon as the government has released it.
True.
So they are very particular when they give approvals to such startups, because everybody wants to just get the tax holiday. So everybody is trying to make their business as a startup. Tomorrow, me as a chartered accountant also is trying to get this thing, but that doesn't work. So it's a more case to case basis. But apart from this tax holiday, there are certain other benefits that the center and the states are giving. So
Mhm.
if you're setting up your business in a particular state, you get your GST rebates, you get rebates for advertising, you get rebates for your electricity bills, etc., etc. Now, but the most important thing is when you start your consulting firm, what is important is to determine what is the kind of organization you're going to start with. You should never be over ambition and start a private limited company immediately. What one needs to understand is that first go for a proprietor concern, set small goals, see how you're going from there, and then slowly and gradually you should convert yourself into a private limited when you're looking for angel funding.
Yeah.
But what I've seen is a lot of startups making this mistake. They immediately get into that process of doing a private limited company or an LLP. What that does is you are increasing your compliance cost. You are increasing the time that you're spending on the compliance. And because of which, what you're not able to do is concentrate on your own business.
So it's begin to start simple and small, and
start simple and small,
then
right?
Growing and then adding the complexities later.
And what actually one
begin
can
with the complex financial model to start with.
Right. What one can actually do is set small targets, because companies cannot overnight become successful or become grow big.
Yeah.
They need to have small targets in place, and once those targets are achieved, then you can probably go for a private limited company.
Reminds me of a metaphor we often use. It says, "How do you eat a dinosaur?" The answer is one bite at a time.
One bite at a time, exactly.
So it's the same with financial planning. You begin with one bite at a time, and it's a huge monster. It's very complex. It's very difficult, and that's why you need professional help from a chartered accountant. But then you begin with things in small bits and take it forward. Thanks a lot, Nishant.
Exactly. And once.
Sorry. Carry on.
No, it's go ahead.
No, you please go ahead.
So as I was saying, I mean, the startup funding that you're talking about, the equity funding and all, that comes in at a later stage. I mean, you also have so many, government schemes where you can actually get funding from. Not only the Startup India, but there are MSME loans also, which are being given to the startups, the eligible startups where the interest rate is low. So those are also certain things that you can look at, but that only happens when once you are into that phase of expansion.
Yeah. Great. Lots of things getting demystified here for our participants, and every bit helps. So thank you so much for your advice, Nishant. I'm sure our independent consultants in the audience are going to greatly benefit from this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.